Have you ever felt completely lost, like you're wandering in a desert with no end in sight? Imagine not just feeling that way, but actually living it. For the Israelites, this wasn't a metaphor, it was their reality. After their miraculous escape from Egypt, a land of slavery, they stepped into a vast, unforgiving wilderness. The initial joy of freedom quickly faded, replaced by a gnawing, desperate hunger. The desert offered nothing, no fields, no fruit trees, just endless sand and rock under a scorching sun. The food they had carried with them was gone. The people, once filled with hope, now murmured in fear and despair. They looked at Moses, their leader, not with respect, but with accusation. "Was it for this you brought us out of Egypt?" They cried, "To die of hunger in this wasteland. At least in Egypt, we had pots of meat and all the bread we could eat." Their memory was selective, of course. They forgot the sting of the whip and the crushing weight of slavery, remembering only the full bellies. But their fear was real. Their children were crying from hunger. The elderly were growing weak. The situation was dire, a slow-motion disaster unfolding day by day. Every sunrise brought not hope, but a deeper dread. It seemed their great escape was just a path to a different, slower kind of death. Moses heard their cries, and his heart ached. He understood their fear, even their anger. He turned to the only source of help he knew. He cried out to God, laying bare the desperation of his people. "What am I to do?" he pleaded. "They are on the verge of turning against me. We need a miracle." The silence of the desert seemed to amplify his plea, a single voice against an immense, empty landscape, and then God answered. The response wasn't a booming voice from the heavens that shook the mountains, but a quiet, firm promise. "I have heard their grumbling," God said to Moses. "Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." A promise of meat. A promise of bread. Here, in the middle of absolutely nowhere. It sounded impossible, almost absurd. How could such a thing happen? Moses delivered the message to the people. You can imagine their reaction: skepticism, doubt, maybe even a little scorn. Meat, bread, here, they must have thought. They had seen miracles before, the plagues in Egypt, the parting of the sea. But their current suffering was so immediate, so tangible, that it overshadowed the memory of past wonders. They went to their tents that evening with heavy hearts, expecting another hungry night. But as twilight began to paint the sky in shades of orange and purple, a strange sound filled the air. It was a soft whirring, a gentle fluttering that grew louder and louder. Then they saw it. A massive cloud, a living, breathing cloud, was descending upon the camp. It wasn't a cloud of dust or rain, but a flock of quail, tens of thousands of them, flying low and settling all around the camp. They were so numerous and so tired from their long flight that the people could simply walk out and gather them. That night, for the first time in a long time, the smell of roasting meat filled the Israelite camp. The people ate. They ate until they were full. The cries of hunger were replaced by sounds of relief and quiet amazement. God had kept the first part of his promise. It was a staggering display of provision, a feast in the middle of a famine. But what about the second part? What about the bread God had promised for the morning? As the sun rose the next day, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. The people woke up and looked out of their tents. The ground was covered with something they had never seen before. During the night, a heavy dew had settled over the camp, and as it evaporated with the morning sun, it left behind a strange substance. It was thin and flaky, like frost on the ground, and it was white, like coriander seed. The people stared in wonder. They cautiously stepped out, pointing and whispering to one another. "Manhué," they asked in Hebrew, which means, "What is it?" They had no name for this substance. They had never seen anything like it. It was a complete mystery. Moses stepped forward and announced, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat." This was the manna, the "what is it?" from heaven. Moses gave them specific instructions from God. Gather only as much as you need for today, 1 omer for each person. This was a test of trust. Could they rely on God to provide again tomorrow, or would they give in to fear and hoard it? "And do not leave any of it until morning," he warned. Most people listened. They went out with their jars and baskets and collected their daily portion. It tasted like wafers made with honey, a sweet, satisfying food that nourished them completely. But, as human nature often goes, some didn't listen. Doubting that there would be more the next day, they secretly gathered extra and hid it in their tents. They thought they were being clever, ensuring their own security. The next morning, they made a foul discovery. The hoarded manna had rotted. It was filled with worms and smelled terrible. The lesson was sharp and immediate. You cannot hoard God's provision. It is given for today. Trust is a daily practice, not a one-time event. The manna that was gathered and eaten on the day it was given was perfect and life-sustaining. The manna that was held onto out of fear and lack of faith became corrupt. There was one exception to this rule. On the 6th day, the day before the Sabbath, they were instructed to gather a double portion. This was because the Sabbath was a day of rest, a holy day where no work was to be done, not even gathering food. And on this one day, the extra portion they gathered did not spoil. It remained fresh and perfect, allowing them to rest and honor God as He had commanded. This weekly rhythm became a powerful reminder of God's faithfulness and His design for work and rest. For 40 years, as the Israelites wandered through that vast and desolate wilderness, this miracle repeated itself. Every morning, except on the Sabbath, the ground was covered with manna. It was their daily bread, their constant, tangible connection to the God who had promised to care for them. It wasn't a one-time spectacle. It was a long, sustained relationship built on daily dependence and daily provision. Think about that for a moment. 40 years, over 14,000 mornings, they woke up to find food waiting for them. This wasn't just about survival, it was a profound spiritual education. They learned that true security doesn't come from a full storehouse, but from a faithful God. They learned that God's provision is perfectly suited for the need of the day. Worrying about tomorrow is pointless when the giver of all things has promised to care for tomorrow. The story of manna is more than just a historical account of a miracle. It's a timeless lesson about trust, dependence, and the nature of God's provision. It speaks directly to our own wilderness experiences, those times when we feel lost, hungry, and desperate. We all have moments when we look at our circumstances and think, there's no way out. I don't have what I need. We worrying about our finances, our health, our future. We are tempted to hoard what we have, to rely on our own strength and planning. But this story invites us into a different way of living. It reminds us that God is a provider. He knows what we need, even before we ask. Just as He provided bread from heaven for the Israelites, He promises to provide for our daily needs. The provision might not look like what we expect. It might not be a sudden windfall or a dramatic rescue. It might be the strength to get through one more day, a word of encouragement from a friend, an unexpected opportunity, or simply the peace that comes from knowing we are not alone. The key is to have the eyes to see it, the manna in our own lives, and the faith to gather only what we need for today, trusting that more will be there tomorrow. It's about letting go of anxiety about the future and embracing a posture of daily trust. So the next time you feel like you're in the wilderness, remember the Israelites. Remember the quail at twilight and the sweetbread in the morning, and ask yourself, what is it? What is the unexpected provision that God has placed in your path today? Look for it, gather it, and be thankful. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores these timeless truths. See you next time.